welcome back. Another episode of Post-Fades Cheesesteaks. Very excited for this one as it begins our 2021 top 10 NFL players for the upcoming 2021 season.
My favorite.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with this last year, and this was actually the reason we started the podcast was to do player rankings. So excited to get started back into it. So today we'll be doing tight ends. A lot of good NFL players. Not the Booties Maximus. So I feel like last year when we were doing this, we struggled to form a top 10 list just because the tight end position was like in a spot where like it was growing, and there were a lot of young tight ends last year, and a lot of injured tight ends. And so I remember we were like struggling to find like players to fit. Like we were struggling to find 10 good tight ends. But this year I think there's like 15 tight ends you could mix and match in this. I think there was a lot better pool to rank. And so I want to start off with 3 honorable mentions. So this will be a little different than last year, but I think it'll be interesting to see right off the bat who we're not going to include.
Look at us, including everyone, even the runners up.
So first of all, I have Noah Fant. This was tough. I based this a lot on the fact that he'll be going. I believe he'll be going to his 3rd year now, and I expected him to make a bigger jump by now. He's just been a little disappointing to me as I watch, because obviously I'm not a Broncos fan, but like watching all the different players and stuff throughout the league, I just feel like he should be better than he is so far. However, if Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Broncos, I think that would bump him into top 10 because he'll get better looks, better volume.
I mean. I didn't mean to cut you off here. I didn't know we would be cutting. I didn't know if I'd be cutting you off this early so soon.
You always do. So
my favorite thing about these top 10 positions is I get to hear your nonsense and question whether you actually know what's going on in football. This one got me really early. I think you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking is. I haven't really processed this yet. I can't. I'm surprised that you took him off your list. I don't want to spoil anything, but he's definitely on mine, and I wasn't even questioning taking him out of top 10. I think his future projections are incredible, especially for top 10. I'd argue he's in the top 10 right now.
I have 2 other like 3rd year young or 2nd or 3rd year younger tight ends that I think are better so far and have shown better progress. I just think for like his value, like he should just be doing more personally.
I mean, he just played his 2nd year in the NFL. I mean,
I know,
but
there's so much talent on that. There should be talent on that Denver offense.
But where are they missing talent? There's a lot of talent on that offense. Don't get me wrong. But where they're missing talent is very important. They don't have a quarterback, and I think that's hurt him a little bit.
Yeah,
but hey, no. I mean, we don't have to argue right now. It's only the honorable mentions. I'm just very surprised that you went that way.
He was like number 11, like him and the guy number. I had 3 players who were actually 4 because all my honorable mentions I swapped at one point at 10. The other guy wouldn't be a football podcast with Dakota Hurst without some Virginia Tech love. Really like Logan Thomas out of Washington. Gotta love your VTQBs turned offensive weapons.
Gotta love it. We're big fans of quarterbacks turned tight ends. Let's go Tebow.
Let's go Tebow. You better not be in your top 10. That'd be
we'll see. We'll see.
I didn't put him in the top 10 solely because of what I've seen from players who transition into different roles like this. Like, I mean, Terrell Pryor is a great example of someone who had a phenomenal year and then got big money, or had another year and then slowly, not even slowly, he just dropped completely.
He actually, looking into this, I didn't really know much about Logan Thomas at all as a tight end. I was surprised that his numbers. I think he had like over 700 yards receiving last year.
Yeah, he had good numbers.
Yeah, he had a solid year. I was very surprised to see that. He didn't make my top 10, but I definitely was considering him more than I ever thought I would. I kind of thought he was just a gimmick quarterback turned tight end.
Yeah,
but he actually had a good year.
I had him at 10 for a little bit, and then I ultimately took him out. But I think if he can show the same kind of production and be consistent, like he could be a borderline top 10 tight end, I think. So
yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if he's necessarily young, but he's young to the position, so he's still learning.
Yeah, I don't remember what year he got drafted. but I believe he was drafted as a quarterback and then just transitioned. But
Yeah. Hey, good for you, man. Find a spot in whatever way you can to stay in the league.
And drum roll, please, for my last honorable mention. I stuck to my ways last year about not having rookies in my top 10, and I will be sticking with that as well. Kyle Pitts, the Falcons tight end, will not be in my top 10. I just can't put a rookie. Like, I know, like, I wanted the Eagles to take him. You know, once in a while specimen at the offensive side of the ball, but we just don't know how he will translate to the NFL. Like, just because his size is great, his speed is great, everything about him is phenomenal, does not mean it'll translate. Look at players who couldn't put together. Like, I mean, Justin Blackmon's a different scenario because he just had off the field issues, but another super talented player that was supposed to be one of the best at his position and did not happen. So pump the brakes a little bit on Kyle Pitts. If this was a fantasy top 10 tight ends, I'd put him in. But for ranking who are the best tight ends in the league right now, not really regarding who's going to put up the most fantasy points, I think Kyle Pitts is – I need to see what he does in the NFL first.
Fair enough. No, I agree with you. I actually didn't – I had him outside my top 10 as well.
Okay. Who are your honorable mentions?
I'm surprised because I even asked you before we did this what we were doing on rookies, and you being the scum tooth you are, left him, a man of mystery. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe. Like, that's not really what I was. Yeah, you're over here sticking to your guns and your life lessons and your morals. You had no interest in putting a rookie in, but you were setting me up to do it. But no, I didn't put him in there. I mean, if we revisit the grading system that I use, I don't know what grading system you use because you really rarely use logic in these rankings. But next year, last year, and if I start on my team, I think Pitts. If I'm starting my team, he's probably a top 5 tight end. Yeah. Just potential and everything. And if you're talking about next year, I would say top 10 as well. I think he's going to be solid next year. But same reason I didn't include the rookie. I thought it was unfair since he didn't play last year.
I mean, that's like saying that you would put Trevor Lawrence in your top 10 QBs, or that you would put last year, maybe you would put, like, I'm still pretty high on Tua. Like, I thought he was a great prospect coming out of college. Like, I wasn't going to put him in my top 10 quarterbacks because I haven't seen him play in the NFL. So
no, I agree. I think it's correct. I think going forward, just not having rookies makes sense. You see him play, a little bit first.
If he has a phenomenal year and shows what our top 3 elite tight ends would do, then yeah, sure, he'll jump up the list next year. But yeah, you gotta prove yourself first.
Fair enough. My honorable mentions. So I have 3 veterans, 2 playing on new teams, and 1 actually coming off a Pro Bowl season. So my list is tough to crack. My 2 honorable mentions got paid this offseason, and my third one was awarded with the Pro Bowl, but none of them sniffed that top 10 because my club's a little tougher to get into. So we'll start with the teammates. I'll put them together because I put them both. I have the same optimism for them going forward next year, and I like them both in different ways. So my honorable mention, I had Jono Smith and Hunter Henry. So Jono, I think he's got the athleticism. He's got the ability to be great. He could be a lethal weapon in the passing game. His blocking isn't there, but I don't think he was ever relied on for it. No. He goes to the Patriots. Obviously, he's going to have to learn to block. That's kind of where Gronk cut his teeth and learned to be one of the best blocking tight ends ever. So I definitely expect him to improve there. And then the other guy is his teammate now is Hunter Henry. Mm-hmm. Hunter Henry, my problem with Hunter is I'm not as optimistic on his future as I think other people would be, or, even though he's only 26, he does have a lengthy injury history already. And you could argue he probably's already peaked. His 2 best years were his, arguably the last 2 seasons, maybe, he had 600, yards each. I don't think he's going to get much better. Like, I think I worded that wrong, maybe.
You said he's not peaking, but his last 2 years have seen progress. That doesn't make
sense. I apologize. I worded that incorrectly. But I mean, what I meant to say is I think I've seen I've seen him peak. I think I've seen the best of Hunter Henry at this point. I feel like I've been waiting for him to take that next step, and it hasn't happened. He's been, he played with Philip Rivers for all those years, and then he had an incredible year with Justin Herbert, as his quarterback. But now he's transitioning to Cam and Mac Jones. I don't think that system is going to necessarily make him flourish as much as he would have in LA. He's got Jono around him, but that's about it. They signed Nelson Aguilar, they signed Kendrick Bourne. I know the Patriots spend a ton of money, But if you look at the weapons, they really didn't improve that much. They got 2 new tight ends, but I still think the offense is going to be a little stale. And then my other honorable mention, and this guy is such a, like, maybe I'm more of a hater than I should be, but I've never been a fan of his. I think he's extremely overrated. He can't block to save his life. You think he should be like a receiving just nightmare. But he has the skills. He has the athleticism. He's a first-round draft pick. Like I said, he was a Pro Bowler last year, but the guy can barely catch the ball. You know, he had the 4th most drops last season, behind 2 rookie wide receivers and Deontay Johnson. That's not really something you're boasting about. And he has the most drops by tight end over the last 2 seasons. I've always thought he's overrated. He gets plenty of looks and doesn't really do much with it. So that's Evan Ingram. He's just, another guy. I think he's stalled. I feel like him and Henry, I've been waiting for them to take another step. Just never been there. And Hunter Henry has an injury history. Ingram's got an injury history. He's got a bad injury history with concussions, which you never like to see on a player. And those things kind of knocked him down. And I'll be the first one to admit I am a Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram. I'm not hater, but I'm definitely not optimistic on their abilities.
I will say the Patriots duo, you'll have to see if either make my list, but Evan Ingram is the most overrated player I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's not good. Like, I don't know how he made the Pro Bowl. Like, his numbers weren't even that good. And like you said, he dropped so many balls. The one game against the Eagles, he dropped like a game winner. Or like I forget what it was. It was like a first down or a touchdown or something that would have like helped seal the game, and he just dropped it on like 4th down. So
the other thing is like, so I have 2 young guys in my top 10. One of them that you mentioned foolishly in your honorable mentions, Noah Fant, and then another young tight end, both younger than.
Well, then Ingram. You're missing a foolish young tight end, because there's 3, I would say, in the top young tight ends. But
for this comparison though,
okay,
they both had less receptions than Evan Ingram and more yards than him. Like, Evan Ingram isn't really explosive. He gets, and you know what? He had over 100 targets last year. He doesn't really do anything with the targets. I know the Giants offense should be better. They picked up Galladay. Slayton looks like a player. Saquon will be healthy hopefully next year. Maybe Daniel Jones makes the step forward, but Ingram has had numerous opportunities and really hasn't done much with it. I think he does enough to get some numbers, but the guy had over 100 targets last year. He's got to do something when you throw him the ball that many times.
Oh yeah. I just never, even Giants fans I know don't like him that much.
He just 109 targets, 63 receptions, 8 drops. That isn't anything special.
You're telling me that the 8th tight end in receiving yards got a Pro Bowl? Like, that doesn't. He had 654 receiving yards on, like, Jesus Christ. He had 109 targets and only 63 catches. Like, that's a big disparity.
I know. That's what I mean.
How do you get the Pro Bowl with 1 touchdown? What the fuck?
Like I said, I have 2 younger guys, Fant included in this, that are coming up soon, and they less targets, less receptions. They have more yards, more touchdowns, less drops, and they're younger. They're like 2nd year, 3rd year guys. I think they're on the way up. I think Ingram, just like Henry, has already peaked. Yeah. Even though they're young guys, I don't think they're going to develop skill wise, and they both have injury issues.
Yeah. Well,
so
off that,
right into it.
Yeah,
and
let's start off.
This is the one that tortured me. Then 10 and 9. The way I broke this up, I kind of like have the 3 studs up top. 1, 2, 3. My next chunk 4, 5, 6 are my young guys. I think that are still about to make that could make that elite jump. Okay. 7 and 8 are my young guys that I'm optimistic about, but are young and haven't really shown enough. And then 9 and 10 are, you could say, the name-worthy guys, the veterans that are getting off more name than anything.
Okay,
but I'll admit it. Maybe I'm just being an Eagles fan here, but I still think you break down my categories last year, next year, if I'm starting my team. And the big one on this guy is if I'm starting my team, because we've heard the trade rumors all off season. And I still think that if you're talking about 10 tight ends in the NFL, you need on your team, you're building to win. He's one of those names. He's still, I think, a very good receiver. He can't block, but he never could, but he is still a very good receiver. I think he was more of a product of the failures in the whole organization and the team for the Eagles last year. But listen, he's 30. I know he's older, but he's not, 100. So I went number 10 with Zach Ertz. I think the Eagles will be better next year. Hopefully the offense line's healthy. They have a little more weapons with Devontae Smith, and hopefully Reagor taking a step forward. And they have a new coach, and they're just not, tripping over themselves with just locker room issues and personnel decisions. So I'm hoping they look a little better. And if he gets traded, he's going to a playoff team or he's going to a contender. So I think I would still be pretty optimistic about his future for next year, even if he got traded. So I went with Ertz. I feel like he could still put it together if he was in the right situation. I think last year was a down year, but if you look outside that, man, his numbers were always solid. He missed a couple games this year for injury, but that's it. He played at least 14 games every other year of his career. And yeah, you're talking about a career much longer than Hunter Henry's and Evan Ingram, who both have missed more time than Ertz ever has.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be happy or concerned that to start off our first top 10 of the year, we both have Zach Ertz at number 10.
Look at that. See, he was the toughest one. And you mentioned it earlier in the week. He was the toughest one for me because I didn't know if I was just being biased, but I just found too many reasons to not include like guys like Henry or Ingram.
So yeah, I penciled him in at 10. And I was like, I can't just have him there. I need to have a reason. And a lot of what you were saying, I just looked at his health. Statistically, he played in 11 games, but he had that ankle issue all year. And if you crunch the numbers, I mean, he was averaging like 9.1, 9.3 yards a catch. So over a typical Zach Ertz year, when he's getting between 90 and 100 catches, would have had like 900 yards. So that's like top 10 numbers, Last year I had him at number 2. Last year you had him at number 3. So it's definitely a drop off. But I just think that ankle injury bothered him too much. He, like you said, he's been a possession receiving tight end. He's never been a blocking tight end. But if we're gonna have, I'm assuming we both have Kittle in our top 10.
Of course.
And he had injuries last year, and people are still putting him way up these lists. So
yeah,
gotta show a little respect to Ertz. If Ertz is fully healthy, like you said, he's a bona fide top 10. So
of course, and I feel good about I feel better about his 2020 if he goes to a different team because I still have my hesitations about the Eagles. But that's just it's a transitioning, rebuilding team.
People forget, Kelsey is 31. Like Kelsey and Ertz are the same age, and people are like, "Oh, Ertz is too old." Like Kelsey is just the same age. Like relax.
I don't want to spoil number 9, but I have another older tight end that's got a much more extensive injury history and then just came back off of skipping a year and looked pretty damn good doing it.
Okay.
So I have faith in these tight ends aging a little gracefully.
I hope the rest of our list isn't the same because I think you have the same number 9 as me. So number 9, I had Gronk.
Go ahead. I did. Go look at that. Maybe you're not as idiotic as I thought you were when you did their honorable mentions. We're back on the same page here.
Oh, God.
I'll let you take this one. Tell me about Gronk.
Yeah, I mean, he's old, reliable. Obviously had a great Super Bowl game. Him and Brady, as the year went on, you could see like they struggled. I don't want to say struggle, but they didn't really have the connection down pat first like half of the season, and then second half they started clicking a lot better. Gronk had 17 plays over 15 yards, so it's right in line with his big play capability and using his big body and size, and he'll be a touchdown monster. If OJ Howard comes back healthy, I think they'll split. I think they still have Cameron Brate too, so they have 3 good tight ends that they can rotate. So yeah, I think last year I had him at 4, and that was fresh off retirement. And I was just factoring in like it's been him and like Kelsey and Ertz have been like the top 3 for like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's still top 10. He's still got, same with Ertz, fully healthy, still got that top 10 talent. So that's really my reasoning with Gronk.
No, I would agree with you that. Gronk also has the added bonus that he is an elite blocker. Like I feel like with Tampa last year, he came on stronger as the year went on, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl where he caught 2 touchdowns, but he wasn't really asked to ever really be part of the passing game. He was kind of blocking for, I would say, at least the first half of the season. And mostly because he's on a team with a ton of weapons around him. And, a quarterback that can just, operate the offense so efficiently that maybe he just needs extra time, in the pocket. He doesn't need another weapon downfield.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gronk, listen, if you want to win tomorrow, he's going to be able to provide value to you, whether it's passing, in the receiving game or blocking. I'm still very optimistic on his, 2021 season. As long as Tom Brady's his quarterback, I am, fully capable or confident in Gronk. He was solid last year. He had like 623 yards. He had 7 touchdowns, 45 receptions. And that's, a brand new offense coming off missing a whole year of football due to retirement. Yeah, I mean, he's older. He's got an extensive injury history. But if I, still building a team to win right now, Gronk's a top 10, easy for what he brings to you.
Yeah, no arguments here. Who's your number 8?
So number 8. So like I said, 9 to 10 were kind of my name-worthy guys, my veterans that got off maybe more name recognition. 7 and 8 are the young bucks. These are the young bucks that I think my optimism for them is leading this ranking more than what they've done so far. But this guy had a solid year last year. Okay. 53 receptions for 703 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Son of a bitch.
Keep going. Son of a bitch. This guy, you memorize his stats? You just knew it as soon as I said?
Yeah, because I was looking at it.
Wow, look at that. So, all right, well, I think you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, third-year guy in the NFL. He's made a jump every single year. Healthy. He's played in every game but one his entire 3-year career. Inconsistent quarterback play, but I still think he's shown to be a solid player, and he's very solid in the passing game. Not much of a blocker, but I don't think he has to be. I think he's more of a glorified slot wide receiver. But since this team got some more speed with Fuller and Waddle around them, and I think Tua takes a step forward, I like his outlook going forward. So my number 8 is Mike Gesicki from the Dolphins.
Yeah, my number 8 is also Mike Gesicki. So wow, 3 in a row. That's concerning.
Look at that. Finally you're saying concerning, but
classes are paying off.
About damn time. You had me worried about Noah Fant there on the honorable mentions, but at least you're redeeming yourself now.
Yeah, a lot of the same reasons you had. I actually had him a little higher, and then brought him back down. Mostly kind of counteractive to what you were saying is because of the additions of Waddle and Fuller. I think he might lose some reps. His production might go down a little. Because like you said, he's not real. He's more of he's kind of like a Zach Ertz tight end, but more of a slot guy, like you said. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how his production works throughout this year, how involved he gets. But he's definitely got talent. Definitely a really good young tight end.
See, I'm the opposite on you. I think the addition of Fuller and Waddle in between, especially their skill sets, will complement Gesicki perfectly. You're talking about neither of those guys are reception guys. They're downfield speed threats that I think will open up the middle of the field for their glorified slot wide receiver in Gesicki. And I expect them to have a very good year.
I think if nothing else, it will show us how good he can be, because if those players are opening up the field, he should be a possession tight end and be able to.
I think, of course. I think he's shown. I mean, I think he's shown his ability to, beat double coverage, go up and get the ball, get open. And if you're playing in a defense, you're probably going to have to keep 2 safeties back on almost every play with Fuller and a Waddle on other sides of Gesicki. So I think there are great additions for him and what they want to do. So I think it's only going to help him, and that kind of helped help boost him up in my rankings was the fact that I think he's going to have a big 2020.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to number 7. So last year I had Austin Hooper, who just got traded to the Browns, or he either got traded or he signed with the Browns. I can't remember.
Yeah. Signed.
And he had there was a lot of mouths to feed in Cleveland. So I'm not going to say he had a bad year, but production wise, it wasn't what we thought it would be. So he will not be making my top 10 this year.
Oh, what a turn. I was about to roast you for putting Austin Hooper at number 7 here, but you little skirt. Okay, go on. In
place, which you'll probably give me flack for anyways, I have his replacement, who I did not have in my top 10 last year, but I remember him being like number 11 or whatever. Okay. Hunter Henry, the new New England Patriots tight end. I think he will be a little stronger than Jonnu Smith, because like you said, Jonnu Smith is a lot more of just a receiving tight end, whereas Hunter Henry is a little more balanced. I mean, his blocking is not the best, but he can definitely get it done when he has to. I think he finally, showed production wise what he can do when he's healthy. I was really surprised the Chargers let him go. So I think as long as Hunter Henry stays healthy, he is a top 10 tight end. And especially in a New England offense, like if he can replicate that kind of That's Brady and Gronk. If they can replicate that, the Gronk role, I think you'll see him have another good year production wise. So I think he's top 10. I just couldn't figure out a good spot, but I think as far as I would give him the nod over Gesicki, and then Gronk and Ertz are like the old heads. So, but I like him at 7.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're a little more optimistic than I am.
I think you're just a hater.
I mean, I feel like I've been waiting for this guy to take the next step, and he just hasn't done it. It's just, and I don't know if it's going to happen. And I'm not really optimistic about the Patriots offense. I know everyone, was praising the Patriots for the offseason they had, but really, when you look at the weapons, like all they did was overspend. I mean, whatever way you want to put it, I don't think they're bad players, but I do think they overspent. I think they just offered more money than anyone else for Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Outside that, you brought in Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who's probably your number 1 and 2. You lost Julian Edelman. I still don't really think this offense is too strong. The quarterback position is definitely still up in the air between whether you want to go with a rookie or Cam. So I think that's going to hurt his value a little bit. But listen, I understand. I see the ranking for you. I went at number 7. I went with the guy you mentioned as your honorable mention, which I am actually just very surprised you did. But I went with Noah Fant. I don't understand what your hate is for him. His rookie year, he had 40 receptions, 562 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. His second year, he had 52 receptions for 673 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. That's a pretty sizable jump in his second year. He's got a very uncertain quarterback situation, which I think holds him back more than anything. But you're talking about a guy like his second year, and he's already proven to be one of the better receiving threats at tight end in the league. He was an early first-round pick. He showed promise coming out, and I've heard a lot of high praise from him, from his teammates and coaches coming out of training camp, which, take with a grain of salt. They're not going to say the guy sucks, but I think he is a guy definitely ascending higher. I like his 2020 season and his future a lot better than like a guy named Hunter Henry. But hey, I'm surprised. You stay in the moment, or you stay in, I don't know, last year and 2 years ago instead of the future, where I live in the future, where Noah Fant will be a top 5 tight end after this season coming up. And Hunter Henry will be discussed as a complete free agency bust.
I wouldn't doubt that Noah Fant has another jump, but I was just looking at 2 other younger players that I have on my list, and they, production wise, have had a better year. Just as many catches, but more yards, double the amount of touchdowns. So I don't know. I looked at it as I expected Noah Fant to be where you ranked him, and in my eyes, he's not there yet, and he should be. So,
well, listen, I mean, as everyone knows, the rankings
he's not a bust. I'm not. Yeah,
the rankings are last year, next year, and if I started my team. So 2 of them involve the future, and if you're talking about the future, this guy is on the track to being a very good tight end. I think the main thing holding him back is the quarterback play. I think he's got a solid offense around him, with Judy and Cortland Sutton. They just need a better quarterback.
I guess. I don't know.
Put it this way. Now that you keep mentioning 2 young guys, I know who one of them is. I don't know who the other one is. I want to say maybe it's a guy who was catching passes from an MVP quarterback that is rumored to be traded to Denver. And if you put Aaron Rodgers on Denver, just watch what Noah Fant would do.
No, I said if Aaron Rodgers was on Denver, then I would put Noah Fant in my top 10. But it's just I can't say because he has a bad quarterback that he gets like a pass.
No, he put up numbers with a bad quarterback.
I don't know if they're numbers. He finished 6th in receiving yards for tight ends. It's good.
He had more receiving yards than Hunter Henry.
He only had 3 touchdowns. What kind of production is that for you?
Hunter Henry had 4. What are you over here acting like that's 3 touchdowns is the end of the world?
But I'm not. That's fine. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I expect out of Hunter Henry. Like, I know what I'm getting. Whereas Noah Fant, I expect him to be a monster, and he hasn't gotten that yet. So maybe my expectations for him are too high.
Well, he is a second-year guy, and Hunter Henry's a 5th-year veteran. I feel more confident in Noah Fant having an incredible year than Hunter Henry. I think Noah Fant is on the rise, where Hunter Henry is already plateaued.
I would say of the people I didn't include, Noah Fant is by far the one who could jump the highest. But I'm just very critical.
Yeah, because you got him all the way down where he shouldn't be in these rankings. But hey,
he's like number 11.
That's still not a good spot. But go ahead. Listen to your nonsense. Just listen to your nonsense and tell me I'm wrong.
All right. So number 6, I have Detroit Lions tight end TJ Hawkinson.
Okay.
So honestly, besides the signing of wide receiver Tyrell Williams, they literally have nobody on offense.
You are right about that.
And now it's no more Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff is the quarterback.
Yep.
So I look at it as this way. Hawkinson, he finished third in receiving yards, 723 at 6 touchdowns, 67 receptions. So that was his second year, I believe, because his rookie year was pretty up and down, but showed a good promise in his second year. And I think now he'll just be a safety blanket for Goff because the Lions' offensive line is not very good either. So he'll just be checking down to him. I think he might have an inflated stat number for the season, like probably have better yardage than he really should. But I think he'll get the ball a lot, and we'll be able to see like how. Same with Noah Fant. It's hard to tell until we get more consistency with these players. But I think Hawkinson will be if he gets a lot of high production, then we'll be able to better evaluate him. But I like his talent so far.
I like Hawkinson. Obviously he came out the same year as Fant. I won't go. I do have him on my list, but not right now. Showing some more bias. Number 6, I went with another Eagle, Dallas Goedert.
Interesting.
So I like Goddard, but even the most optimistic Dallas Goedert fan would tell you last year was a little disappointment. He showed a little bit of injury concern, missed a bunch of games, which you never want to see. A solid stat line. I won't say his stats, were terrible. He has 46 receptions, 524 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns, which apparently in your eyes means nothing, because that's what Noah Fant had. But what I think really separates him is his blocking. He's an incredible blocker.
Yes.
He's really flourished in that role since he has played his whole career next to Zach Ertz, who is only a receiving tight end option. But he was actually the number 1 ranked run blocker within the last 3 years by PFF. So very impressive. I expect him to take a step forward. I think Ertz, even if he's not traded, his role kind of diminishes a little bit. I think the Eagles definitely look at Dallas as the future. I think the Eagles will be a little bit more, successful on offense as a team. I'm not saying they're going to be contending for the playoffs, but I expect it to be a little bit better than the shit show of last year. But listen, Dallas is young. He showed promise. He's an incredible blocker. Just kind of the same thing we said with Gronk. His blocking makes him valuable. But I think he has room to grow as a receiving option as well. So I think it's just the opportunities. If Ertz moves on, I definitely seen him step into a bigger role. Just, my only thing going forward with him is kind of injuries now. Now that the injuries popped up last year, it puts that in your head now. He's young and he's kind of, he only played 11 games last year. In comparison, Zach Ertz, never missed games up until this year. So something to worry about, but he's still a solid player. Definitely one of the better receiving, blocking overall tight ends in the league too.
Yeah. So for me, the tight end rankings, somewhat similar to offensive line rankings where you can't rely solely on stats. And so my 5 and 4 guys are like arguably 2 of the best balanced tight ends in the league, as far as blocking ability and receiving ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I have him a little higher than you. Also might be
Fair
a little
enough.
bit of Philly bias, but I have Dallas Goedert at number 5. And I did not expect him to be this high on my list when I started. I expected him to be like lower end, like 8, 9. But just looking at a lot of things, and then even like a lot of page, like, PFF, I think had him at number 5 in their, upcoming rankings, and other ranks had him at, 6 and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow. So I'm not being biased. It's like people actually are thinking that he's ready to break out, assuming, Zach Ertz is traded and that this is Goddard's team to be the starting tight end of.
Yeah.
I just think, like you said, hands down, one of the best blocking tight ends. And we haven't really gotten to see him take off as a receiver, which I give him a little edge on that. Like, if we can see what he can do, we'll get a better idea. So it's more of just like a hoping that he has that good production. But yeah, I feel, some of my arguments will go back and forth. Because like you said, Dallas Goedert only had 3 touchdowns. Whereas I was ripping Noah Fant for having 3, but Noah Fant is the starter. Dallas Goedert was not the starter. Zach Ertz was.
Oh, don't give me that. Stop lying to me.
Zach Ertz suited up for 11 games as the starter. So you can't. And Goddard was blocking most of the time. Noah Fant isn't really blocking most of the time. He's going out to catch the ball. So,
well, I mean, you can also factor in Goddard missed quite a number of games last year where Fant hasn't missed barely any in his entire career.
Fant played in 14 games last year, had 673 yards, 62 catches. Where did you go, Dallas? Dallas Goedert had 11 games played, 46 catches, 524 yards.
Hey, listen, nothing against Dallas. I think he's just a very good tight end with ability to get better. I have him ranked, pretty high up in the top 10 relative to the league. But I mean, it's just, you're right. We haven't seen him take the next step in, being a better receiver. And, most of that is because Ertz has been his teammate for his entire career.
Yeah.
So, but, the other side of that is, well, if he was given more opportunity and he was the number one tight end and defenses weren't worried about Zach Ertz anymore and only were worried about Dallas Goedert, how would he succeed?
Right.
So you never know. I do think it's funny that we had Goddard and Hawkinson basically flip-flopped because my number 5 is TJ Hawkinson. So I
don't know how you have him higher, but go ahead.
TJ Hawkinson, I have him higher. Well, he's coming off Pro Bowl. He had a very strong season last year, much stronger than Dallas Goedert. He had 67 receptions for 723 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I hope that's a solid number for you. The touchdown, Cesar over there. But he is only 23 years old. I think TJ Hawkinson is going to get much better, and he's coming off arguable elite, tight end production. He's getting better as a blocker. He's not a bad blocker by any means. He's not Dallas Goedert, but he's only in the second year in the NFL, and he's a solid blocker.
Yeah.
My only hesitation with TJ Hawkinson, and that doesn't really have much to do with him, is his team is an absolute joke. Matthew Stafford to Jared Goff is a complete, downgrade. And I couldn't even name you a wide receiver on that team. If you told me, you and I don't know, the Philly Fanatic were suiting up for the Lions this year at tight end or wide receiver, I'd probably believe you. So I think he'll be great. He had over 100 targets this year and was very successful with it. I'm not saying that the Lions were good last year. He still managed to have a solid year. So I think he'll still have a solid year this year while the Lions win 3 games. But it's my optimism for him going forward. I think he could develop into being an elite level blocker. I think more than I believe Dallas Goedert can become an elite level receiving option. Where TJ Hawkinson, I honestly think is already there. Receiving wise, I think he is an elite receiving option.
Big bad
I
boy.
think Waller and Kelsey were the only tight ends with more receiving yards than him last year. He had 723 and 6 touchdowns. It's pretty solid. So you're talking about third in receiving yards already in the guy's second year, and he's 23 years old. He's only going to get better, and he's doing this on a team that sucks. Yeah. So Dan Campbell was a tight end coach too with the Saints. When he's not biting off kneecaps, he's teaching tight ends how to play football. I'm hoping that helps TJ Hawkinson, but the guy's a baller. Goddard and Hawkinson and the next guy I have all kind of pretty much right next to each other in that 4, 5, 6 tier. I think you can honestly splitting hairs.
I wonder if our 4, 3, 2, 1 are exactly the same. I feel like they might be.
They could be. I mean, like I said, 10-9 were the names, 7-8 were the young bucks, 6-5-4 are my kind of established youngsters with room to grow, and then 1, 2, 3 are my elite guys. But 4, 5, 6, you could put them in any single order. To be honest with you, I'm not gonna kill you over having Goddard over Hawkinson. I would have switched them too. I just think they're all in that same area.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Goddard thing being at 5 for me, I think it's just I've seen a lot of him, so I feel I can give a better ranking as opposed to like a Noah Fant or a Hawkinson. I
mean, PFF had Hawkinson, I believe, ranked in the top 10 for tight ends and run blocking too, and that's a second-year guy. Blocking is something I think you can learn with coaching more than receiving. It's hard to teach a guy to be faster to get open or jump higher to catch the ball or just catch the ball in general. I think you can teach blocking more than you can teach how to be a receiving threat. Well,
since we reference PFF Pro Football Focus so much, they had Noah Fant at 11. So I don't feel as much of an idiot, having him outside my top 10 because they had Hawkinson at 7 and they had Goddard at 5, which I didn't have Goddard at 5. I had him a little farther back at first, and then
my defense here. I believe PFF had. Did they have Kyle Pitts on their top 10 list?
Of course they did. Why wouldn't
So
they?
yeah, so if they took off Kyle Pitts, like I took him off my list because I made rookies ineligible, he'd be a top
Okay.
10 tight
So
end.
Noah Fant would be at number 10. So like I said, he was number 11
Still
for
top
me.
10.
I
But
had him penciled in and I took him out. I told you.
Yeah, I know, but you didn't have Kyle Pitts on your list. And here's the other thing. I look at my list much more, respectable than yours and PFF. So, I'm not going to turn my back on the expert list just to accommodate for lesser quality lists.
Whatever. Who's your number 4?
My number 4, just in that same region as well. A guy who I think has shown elite tight end talent already. He was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago. Put up 58 receptions for 701 yards, 7 touchdowns. And you'll actually like this because he's got 17 combined touchdowns the last 2 seasons. He is the number 1 receiving threat on his team.
Yep.
He's a solid run blocker. I'm not going to say he's, Dallas Goedert or Gronk, but, in the offense that he's a part of, he has to run block. And I think he does a successful job of it. So I'm going with Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens at number 4.
I also had Mark Andrews at number 4.
I think. See, you know what? You're foolish with the Noah Fant and Hunter Henry decision, but I think we are right around the same thinking on everything else.
Yeah, I like I said. I mean, or like you said, 4, 5, and 6 for me is the very talented, balanced tight ends. Mark Andrews is still a force. Pretty good run blocker, like you said. Maybe not the best, but definitely can. I mean, look at how much the Ravens run the ball. Obviously, he's doing something right.
You have to, and he's the number 1 receiving threat on that team. He's never had less than 500 yards receiving in any of his years.
He's a red zone monster. He had 10 touchdowns last year, 10 touchdowns 2 years ago, 7 touchdowns last year. And I actually think that the addition of Sammy Watkins, while he's not the sexiest name out there, I think his speed will help open things up for Andrews in the middle. To get him the ball more. So that's great. And I think he's a really good all-around tight end and fits right. You could rotate these 4, 5, 6 guys, like you said, and they're all kind of in the same boat.
I wouldn't be surprised if either of the 4, 5, 6. I mean, you have the 3 elite tight ends, which we'll get to.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys made the jump into that elite tier next year.
Fair enough. I could say that. Moving in number 3. This is a tight end that I had at number 3 last year as well.
Did you?
I think when, assuming he's fully healthy, no question, he's a top 3 tight end. One of the better, I think he's a tier above these other guys that we talked about being balanced, where he's got this animal instinct to like block you into the ground and also, stiff arm you and shove you into the ground as a receiver. So definitely a monster. Not the best tight end in my opinion, but he's definitely top 3 worthy. So number 3, George Kittle out of the San Francisco 49ers.
Fair enough. Okay. I mean, listen, we have the same top 3. I didn't have Kittle at 3. I'm a little bit more optimistic with Kittle. I think he had a down year due to injuries. But you know what? I'll get to him. Number 3, I have a guy who was actually ranked number 5 for me last year.
Yeah, you were high.
And after he had, he had 1,100 yards in 2019. He went and, was 4 yards shy of doing 1,200 yards this year. He had 107 receptions. So he managed to top his incredible numbers from 2019. And he has just been an absolute force since he got on the Raiders. But the stat line is all you need here. 107 receptions, 1,196 yards, and 9 touchdowns.
Gee.
That is not an elite tight end option. That is an elite wide receiver option, numbers. Yeah. That's a number 1 wide receiver numbers. So he's been an absolute force since he got to Las Vegas. Gruden has just brought out the absolute best in him. He is arguably, and my argument between him and Kittle, why I had Kittle too, which I'll get to later, but it's Waller can't block at all, but he is a better receiving threat than Kittle.
I wouldn't say he can't block at all. I've seen him get better. He's definitely not same tier as most of the people in our top 10, but he's definitely gotten better.
I mean, sure. He's, nothing to write home from,
Like you said, it's like a player.
So looking at PFF,
need it.
Yeah, looking at PFF, this is where, so he's 91, overall receiving wise. He's 58 pass blocking and 49 on run blocking.
Damn.
So those aren't some fun
You're a
numbers.
little more critical than I am.
But you know what? You don't have to. You know, when you're bringing down, over 1,100 yards the last 2 years and 9 touchdowns this season, over 100 receptions, you don't need a block. Just be awesome. Pro Bowler this year, really an incredible, just, passing threat. I wouldn't even say he's a tight end. He's just an incredible. He'd be a number 1 wide receiver on other teams. And you know what? He is pretty much, Kyle Pitts owes him a lot of credit because I think the develop of Waller and his emergence Kyle Pitts is amazing and all, but Dallin Waller, I think, laid the blueprint for what Kyle Pitts could be. He can be a number 1, receiving threat, just a physical freak that is just supremely gifted athletically and massive, and just great hands and great ball ability and great route running and get open.
Yeah.
So really incredible. Like I said, jumped from the top 5 to top 3 this year, and he is definitely in that elite ranking.
All right. So you have 2. So who's your number 2?
So 2, like I mentioned, I'm still a little bit more optimistic. Obviously, between the 2, Waller had a much better year last year than Kittle did, but that's mostly because of injuries. But if he's healthy, Kyle Shanahan's still running that offense. The 49ers still have an incredible stable of weapons. I like what they're doing. They brought back Trent Williams. They have a strong offensive line. They have Lance. I don't think he's going to play. If Jimmy G stays healthy, I still think he can get it done. But Kittle's blocking is one of the best in the entire league. I mentioned how Waller went for over 1,100 yards the last 2 seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if Kittle goes over 1,100 yards any year that he's fully healthy. He is that playmaking receiving threat at tight end, but it's really his blocking that bumps him up over Waller, I think, even after a down year. Like I said with Andrews, the Ravens are a run-first team that has a lot of success running the ball. The Niners are exactly the same way. And, you can't help the fault that it helps when you have 6 offensive linemen at your, Gronk did it with the Patriots. The Patriots have always been a strong running team when Gronk was there because you have 6 offensive linemen lined up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Kittle's a beast. He had a down year. That's literally the only thing that, you could really say about the guy. He still put up 48 receptions, 634 yards and 2 touchdowns in, I don't know, I think he played 8 games, maybe that. I don't even remember.
Yeah, he played 8 games.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive. You factor in that was in 8 games. He's averaging close to 1,300 yards. So he's the stud. It's kind of last year we had him number 1.
You did, not me.
Oh, you're right. I apologize because that's more of a 1A, 1B thing, I think, with the top guy. But well, this year's different. I mean, my number 1 guy just went off this year, so I think he's secured that number 1 spot pretty easily.
Yeah.
So, go on with number 2 for me.
Yeah, my number 2 is Waller. Pretty much everything you said, just a physical beast. Kind of built in the same mold as Pitts, where, big possession receiver. You're not going to ask him to block a ton just because he's going to be your main offense you want to go to. Yeah. I think the Raiders are in a weird spot where, like, we think they're going to be good, and then also we think they're going to be not good. So I hope he continues to progress because, 2 years ago he had his breakout year. Then last year he improved upon that. Like you said, 9 touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all.
107 catches is a lot volume. So, and he's got good hands, good footwork. So I think he'll continue to. I don't know if he'll stay in this Elite 3 for the rest of the couple of seasons, but I hope he does. We'll just have to see. It's all about staying consistent for him.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the number 1, who I had at number 1 last year as well, because I'm smart.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but sure.
Before I say his name, I just want to say one player that has been excluded from both of our lists is Robert Tonyan, the Packers tight end. And I think a lot of people were riding him and thinking he was going to be really good because he had 11 touchdowns, but he only had 500 receiving yards. Whereas my number 1, Travis Kelce, also had 11 touchdowns, but he had triple the amount of yards. 105 catches for 1,400 yards as a tight end with 11 touchdowns.
He's incredible. He is incredible. I also had him at number 1. I pride myself on being quite the hype man and wingman when needed. I can talk up anyone. I honestly don't know if I can talk up Travis Kelce enough that it's, worthy of what he's done, but I'll try my best. I mean, the guy plays every single game. He's played at least 15 games every single year besides his rookie year, which he barely played. And The only time he misses games really is when the Chiefs have everything locked up and they just rest their starters at the end of the season. He's had over 1,000 yards receiving the last 5 seasons. You already mentioned the 105 receptions, the 1,400 yards, and the 11 touchdowns. He is the number one passing option. I mean, you could say him or Hill, but he is arguably the number one passing option on the most lethal offense in the NFL. The guy is absolutely incredible. One other thing I wanted to mention, because this actually surprised me. I was looking at PFF. I was doing my rankings. He's the number 3 ranked run blocking tight end by PFF, behind only Adam Troutman, who doesn't really do much outside of blocking, right, and Dallas Goedert, who we've already praised enough as being one of the best. It's just incredible. He another thing I found very interesting. Obviously, he was a unanimous first-team All-Pro last year, as he completely deserved.
Yes.
But the All-Pro team, slight disrespect to Darren Waller, but I don't really understand why they didn't do this. The second-team All-Pro team didn't have a tight end. They left it vacant. I would just took that as Travis Kelce was so awesome that they just rewarded both the first team and second team to him, and just out of respect. But honestly, I don't know what else you want. Like the guys, I mean, you could, I guess the only knock you could say is he's 31, but the guy doesn't miss games.
No.
So I'm not even worried a tiny bit that he wouldn't be able to play. And maybe this is kind of where he caught up to Kittle, because Kittle can't match these receiving numbers. I mean, you're talking about like number one, like he's in the lead for receiving yards and receiving touchdowns almost every year with wide receivers. And he's a solid run blocker. He's not a liability there where, Darren Waller's kind of giving you the closest thing you can see from that position receiving wise, but he's not coming anywhere near the run blocking ability that Kelce gives you. Obviously, going forward, he is the best tight end in football. So who wouldn't want his team if you're starting a team? And as long as Mahomes is there and Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill, I don't see why I would expect him to have a down season. I just kind of can pencil him in for at least 95 receptions, at least, 1,100 yards, and at least 8 touchdowns pretty much every year.
Yeah.
So he's incredible. You're talking about this. He's number 1 on tight ends, but you're talking about one of the best players in football, regardless of positions.
100%.
You could argue he's a top 5 football 100%. Player in the NFL. And I would strongly support that. You say a lot of crazy things, but if you said Travis Kelce was a top 5 football player in the NFL, I'd back you up on that.
Now, to my knowledge, that has to be the most amount of receiving yards for a tight end in NFL history.
It is.
Right?
You are correct. Yes, that was the record. So
when you have a
record-setting season,
Yeah, Zach Ertz has the reception record, but I mean the 1,400 yards is insane.
It's just it's amazing, and it goes hand in hand. It helps playing with Patrick Mahomes and across from Tyreek Hill. But listen, he is a vital part of that offense. He's not a product of that offense. He's a pillar of why that offense is awesome.
Oh, I agree. I mean, yeah, you gotta. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a different story when you don't have time to throw the ball, but because they had so many offensive line injuries. But you look at what he's able to do. Like, even if he's not getting the ball, he's drawing interest from the defenders, and that opens up players like Tyreek Hill or for the running backs to go out, like go routes or whatever. And so he's a great decoy, great blocker, great receiver, just all around phenomenal player. And like you said, definitely in the tops of playmakers in the NFL, regardless of position. So
now I have a question for you, because when we were talking about fan, you kept saying you had 2 young tight ends that you ranked a little higher. I knew Hawkinson was one of them. I thought Tunyon was the other guy you were talking about. I thought you meant higher. No. I was waiting. I was like, there's no way this fool. Well, that's why I was mentioning, if they swap quarterbacks, when you said young guy that you had in front of fan, that's who I thought you were referring to.
No. Well, funny enough, I was thinking back when we did our running backs and we were like, we can't leave, the Green Bay running back, just lost his name.
Aaron
Jones. Yeah. I was like, we can't leave Aaron Jones off the list because he had over 10 touchdowns. And I was like, all right, 11 touchdowns is a lot. And then I actually looked at his numbers, like numbers aren't great. And then I was like reading stuff off about him, and people say like, as a receiver, he's not, he doesn't, I think PFF said he didn't break a single tackle last year, which is like for a tight end, that's kind of odd. His blocking.
Listen, I think it helps when you play. Well, I think it helps when you play. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for our future rankings, but you have arguably the number one quarterback and number one wide receiver on the same offense. That's going to help open things up for you a little bit. So if they're going to put the ball exactly where it needs to be, and I'm wide open, I might be able to catch 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how involved he is this year with or without Rodgers. Because I mean, he could be a good tight end someday, but I mean, I feel like if you take away Rodgers, does he still put up those numbers? I mean, is Jordan Love really going to get him the ball that much?
No. This is where, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers was on the Broncos, I guarantee you Noah Fant is just lighting the league on fire.
Yeah. I mean, he had 52 catches for 586 yards and 11 touchdowns. And like I said, Kelsey had 3 times as many yards, which is insane. But
listen, I always take something ridiculous from this whole thing, dealing with you. Your no appreciation for Noah Fant is definitely mind-boggling.
It's not a no appreciation, is that I think he should be better than he is, and he's not.
He's a second-year player. Where did you want him to be at?
Better.
Well, here you are. Very tough on everyone.
I just look at like jump that Hawkinson had from rookie to last year, and then look at Fant had.
Listen, Fant had a solid jump.
I'm not saying Fant's bad. I just think right now Gesicki and Hawkinson and Goddard and like some of these other younger tight ends are just better than him right now, and I think Fant can definitely jump into this ranking next year. But he's like 11.
I don't know. I think you're sleeping on him. And listen, you're talking about not being better. I know stats aren't everything, but this past season, he had 673 receiving yards. That's more receiving yards in a season than Hunter Henry has ever had. The highest Hunter Henry has ever had was 652 in 2019. Okay. And you're talking about a guy that missed an entire year from injury. I don't know. I see a very high ceiling and a bright future for Noah Fant. And maybe he's a year behind TJ Hawkinson. I know they came out in the same draft. They were both high draft picks, and they were both teammates in college. I wouldn't be surprised if Noah Fant makes a jump like TJ Hawkinson did this year, next year. His quarterback situation is a little unresolved, but he's got weapons around him. I think that offense will ultimately be solid, regardless of the quarterback play, because there's just too many open options around him and good skill players. But we'll see. I'm a little higher on Noah Fant than I think you are. I think you're a little too low on him.
I mean, that's fair. I think I am a little hard on him, but like I said, I just think he would be. I think I would have an easier time arguing him by this time, last year. So, I look at Hunter Henry and I say if you can get good play from one of those quarterbacks, whether it's Cam or the rookie Mac Jones, I think he'll fill that Gronk. I mean, they still run the same offense.
How about this?
So.
I think even the most optimistic expectations for Mac Jones and Cam Newton, this will still be the worst quarterback that Hunter Henry's played with his entire career.
You hate Philip Rivers, and
that's saying a lot. Listen, Philip Rivers was solid those years that he was there. It was still, this was before Philip Rivers was starting to slow down. But I think Justin Herbert's incredible rookie season would be much better than anything Cam Newton or Mac Jones can give you.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I didn't argue your Noah Fant at 7. I was fine with it. So
yeah, but you see,
I just didn't argue it.
Well, listen, you make foolish decisions, and I can at least guarantee everyone. I just want every podcast we can guarantee 2 things. 1, it'll be a masterclass free of charge. You're welcome. And 2, Dakota will say something ridiculous that most of us don't agree with, and here we are.
I could flip him and Gesicki, and I would be fine with that, but I don't know.
See, I have him and Gesicki right next to each other. Literally, I had him at 7 and 8, and I think that's a good spot I put him a little bit higher than the guys with name brands like Ertz and Gronk, just because I think they have a better future ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, if it, like you said, I have Gronk and Ertz at 9 and 10 because I think when healthy and getting the ball, they're better than the rest of those tight ends. But if they still struggle with injuries or can't get the ball, don't get the ball, then yeah, Noah Fant will jump ahead of them. I like Noah Fant. I just, like I'm saying, I just expect him to be in this 700 yards with Hawkinson and pushing to 800 and more than 3 touchdowns because he's a starter, because he should be getting the ball more. But
well, I mean, let's be honest. Hawkinson had no one around him to take targets away from him, and he had a very, very good quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Even regardless of how terrible the Lions are, Stafford will always put up numbers. We saw Calvin Johnson make a Hall of Fame career out of it. Yeah. So I think in that situation, you know, I'd rather be in an offense where my quarterback's good and everyone else sucks around me and put up big numbers than be Noah Fant, who's in a solid offense with skill players around him that are really good, that are going to take targets away from him, but a quarterback that can't get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, we'll see.
I'm curious if PFF had like a blocking on Noah Fant.
They did. I'll pull it up.
I know they gave him a 71.2 overall, which is good for a player.
Well, yeah, because he's a good player.
I didn't say he was a bad player.
Yeah, no, just gotta remind you of these things every once in a while. You get a little confused.
I just remember him coming out of college.
All right, no fan. So Noah Fant, he had an 80.3 receiving grade, which is number 5 out of all tight ends in the NFL, behind
pretty good
George Kittle, Darren Waller, and Travis Kelce, and surprise, surprise, Richard Rodgers.
Richard Rodgers.
So you're talking about the 3 best tight ends that me and you both had in our top 3, and the outlier here being at Richard Rodgers, who turned into prime Tony Gonzalez at the end of the year for the Eagles. But he is, and I'll give you this, he got a 28 on pass blocking and a 53 on run blocking, and that's terrible.
28?
Yeah, listen, he's not a strong.
Man. That's bad.
Can we pull up Hunter Henry's? I guarantee Hunter Henry's is much better.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me.
54. So
that's a lot better.
All right, sure, but it's not good.
This is what I'm saying though. It's like
look at Hunter Henry. Here we go. Hunter Henry, where I just had him, had a 67 receiving. That's not even close to what Noah Fant is giving you.
I mean, they're different types of tight ends.
Sure, but Hunter Henry is not a blocking tight end. I look at him as a receiving tight end, and Noah Fant's already better at his best thing.
Right, but I'm saying that's what the thing with Noah Fant is. Like, I'm not saying I want him to put up Waller numbers, but if he's going to be that bad at blocking, you got to be much better. And I know you said he was number 5, but I don't know. I'm expecting more from him, especially from what I heard it coming out of college. Like he was going to be a monster, and
I don't know what you want to be an all pro in his first, his second year. I think it's unfair to compare him against Hawkinson, which I think you're doing too much for him, because Hawkinson had a great year, but different situation. But I think Noah Fant is still on that track to be a very good tight end. Like I would not be surprised if he goes for over 1,000 yards this year, and it really all comes down to Drew Lock. Or the quarterback position for Denver.
This is lining up with everything I said. I said if he puts up good numbers this year, he'll move in. I'm waiting for that big jump.
So how about this? Who do you think has a better year next year? Noah Fant or TJ Hawkinson? Because considering the circumstances now,
Hawkinson, because of who his quarterback is, who the receivers are, he's going to be the number 1 player in that offense. Whereas Noah Fant has Sutton and was Judy, isn't that who they drafted the year before?
Yeah, I think Hawkinson's going to take a step back. Like the drop off from Matthew Stafford to Jared Goff, I think is pretty severe. And there is not a single NFL caliber wide receiver on that roster right now.
Yeah, that means he's going to get the ball more. And Jared
Goff, but he's also going to get triple teamed.
Yeah, but Jared Goff is better than
Drew Lock. Yeah, I would agree with you there. Yeah, but we'll see. I think Hawkinson, and this is why, I rated him pretty high because I feel, high about his future and everything. But the situation for the Lions is very dire, to say the least, for next year. Jared Goff, I don't think is a great quarterback. I think McVay made him look a lot better than he actually was. He had a very incredible stable of wide receivers his entire career. And I think now that he's going to be on a terrible team, you're going to see something different. You're going to see a very, very mediocre quarterback, where Matthew Stafford is going to flourish in this Rams role because he was a solid quarterback in dire situations his entire career. So I think going to greener pastures will help him, where Jared Goff's going to get a little exposed because he's leaving greener pastures for something a little more dire.
I mean, I didn't think we would spend the majority of this episode talking about Noah Fant, but
well, listen, you're always guaranteed some kind of nonsense. I didn't think it was going to be Noah Fant, but that was my biggest gripe with your issue. I mean, pretty much the rest of our list matched up pretty closely.
I get it. But like I said, if you go look around other lists, he's not in that like top 6, top 7. He's like right around 7 to 10, like 10 to 15. So do I think he'll be a good tight end for the next couple of years? Absolutely. But I just want him to make a bigger jump. That's all I'm saying.
See, this
Because
is
I
where
think Hawkinson's making that jump and it's clear, whereas Fant is just inching a little slower. But I'm waiting for like that because I feel like I haven't seen him just take over a game. And if you want a player like that in the top 10, you kind of want them to be able to do that.
I mean, he's a second-year guy. I don't know how far you want him to be progressed at this point, but to the other list, see this difference. I look at my list as being the best. I don't need to water it down with other nonsensical lists that are lesser quality. So I don't use their rankings to.
The only difference our list had was that we subbed Noah Fant and Hunter Henry. The rest of it,
I think that was egregious. I honestly think that was egregious. I don't know. I don't see what you like about Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry's going in a worse situation than he's been in his entire career. I already mentioned the quarterback play. He's got a lengthy injury history, and I think he's already peaked. I think I've seen the best of Hunter Henry. I think I've been waiting for him to take another step, and I don't think I'm going to get it. Noah Fant is already putting up numbers now in his second year with a very mediocre quarterback that Hunter Henry, they're matching Hunter Henry's career best with much better quarterback play, and he's doing it in his second year. So I think you have too high of expectations of Noah Fant for where he's at right now.
Look, that's fair. I won't argue that. And yeah, Hunter Henry has his faults too. I just look at scenarios. I think he'll be better in that Patriots offense where they also have Jonnu Smith. They're going to open things up. Whereas Noah Fant,
no, they only have Jonnu Smith. They don't also have Jonnu Smith. They only have Jonnu Smith.
They got Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, who I couldn't stand as a third option. Now he's the number one wide receiver on an NFL team.
And N'Keal Harry, who's another wide receiver bust, first round pick. But
yeah. So yeah, listen, they overpaid. I mean, I wouldn't say overpaid. They paid a premium for two tight ends. Yeah. Because that's what they wanted. And that's fine. They prioritized tight ends as being the most important part of their offense. And Bill's got a history of that. So he knows what he's doing. I'm not going to doubt him. But you look at those weapons, I'm not impressed. And the quarterback play is leaving a lot to be desired. So I'm not totally sold on his 2021 season.
Fair enough. Well, looking at the lists, I'm surprised how close they were. This episode was probably double or triple the length of our first tight end episode, which was like 25 minutes. Because I just feel like last year was like a weird year for tight ends, but this year was 2 years ago was a weird year, but this year we had a lot better production out of the position. And
looking at my top 10 last year, I had obviously the three, which are the easy ones that, was Ertz, Kittle, and Kelsey. You had Gronk, who was literally just coming off name because he was just out of retirement for it. Waller, Hooper, who just completely, did nothing this year. Really, he didn't
need to when you have two top 10 running backs. Arguably,
listen, you're right. Andrews, I had 7. Jared Cook somehow was my number 8, and then Hunter Henry, even though I shit on him so much, was 9 last year, and then I got it at 10. So
wait a minute. You had Hunter Henry at 9 last year, and I didn't even have Hunter Henry in my list last year. So
I educated myself and I fixed it.
Yeah, mine was pretty similar. I had Kelsey 1, Ertz 2, Kittle 3, Gronk at 4, Mark Andrews at 5. I also had Jared Cook at 6. I think it's because we thought he was going to play with Drew Brees and he would have a nice year. And I think he's in with the Chargers now.
He is. Then
I had Austin Hooper, who down year, but also like if they can just run the ball down people's throats, you don't really need to worry about passing the ball. I had Darren Waller at 8 because I was pumping the brakes because I didn't know if he was going to be able to
Darren Waller at 8. Dude went off for over 1,100 yards, and you had him at 8.
I've seen too many, and I probably made the same argument. I've seen too many times where a player just comes out of nowhere, has a great year, and then disappears. So I was like pumping the brakes, but obviously I respected him putting it all the way at number 2. He
had 90 receptions and over 1,100 yards. You know what it was probably though? He had 3 touchdowns. That's probably what you didn't.
It was just because he came out of nowhere. You need consistency. And then I had Goddard at 9, and then Tyler Higbee was at number 10. And I had Tyler Higbee in fantasy.
Your list aged poorly.
I had Tyler Higbee in fantasy this year. No, I only had 3 that didn't make it this time. But I had Tyler Higbee last year in fantasy, and he was brutal. So bad for me. So he got kicked off the list. But yeah, I think overall good list. The top 3 elite is definitely no question between Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle going into this year. It's a shame that Ertz has dropped so much, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And now the question of who's even going to be throwing the ball, like what colors he's going to be wearing. So, but yeah, I like the lists. Any final thoughts?
No, just this was a good teaser to the nonsense that you're going to provide us on the later list. So I look forward to that. And listen, I'm happy. I've been living through a lot of sports depression. Obviously the Sixers,
oh God,
the Flyers, just both making me hate their respective sports. The Phillies just having an abomination of a bullpen and continue embarrassing themselves on a daily basis. But so, the list gives me something to look forward to. I liked it a lot when we did last year. I'm looking forward to our guests when we put them on. So I'm excited. I think it should be good. I'm looking forward to some more nonsense from you. And always remember, free masterclass.
Masterclass. Yeah, we had to start it off with just the two of us, but we'll probably look to get a guest on for most of them. And then we'll most likely flip back and forth between offensive, defensive positions like we did last year. But yeah, I mean, keep it mostly football, but I will say it is sad when I sit in traffic driving through I-95 and I have to look at the stadiums and that Philly Unite sign, and they're not even playing anymore. So
yeah.
Well, the Suns are up 3-1, and I forget how it's 1-1, right? Because the Hawks surprised and took game one of the Bucks.
Yeah, but then the Bucks went and just destroyed them in game two.
Yeah.
And
they might just go off after that.
Since you brought it up, I didn't want to bring it up, but I am going to be watching the game tonight. Game 3, Hawks versus Bucks. Who do you got?
Well, I said if the Bucks don't sweep, that the Hawks would take it to 7, so I'll go with the Hawks.
Feel that. I think the Bucks gave them game 1. Well, not gave them. I think they came out. The Hawks played an incredible game and deserved game 1. Yeah. I think the Bucks figured out how to stop them, locked down defensively. I think game 2 was the beginning of the end. I expect more of game 2 and less of game 1. So I think the Bucks are going to win this.
We'll see. So there you go, fans. A little sprinkle of NBA.
Yeah, that's about all the NBA I can handle right now because I still hate the league, but
Well, I will say the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning are in the Stanley Cup. So
that is true. That's surprising. Canadiens are really on a roll. Vegas was my team. I thought Vegas was going to win it all, but another year, I guess.
Also, it hurts to see Tampa Bay getting so much like sports success because I feel like their fan bases aren't the strongest. But I mean,
I'll say the Lightning have a strong fan base. Living down in Orlando, they are strong down there. Yeah. See, it's what the problem is. Tampa's got a strong following. It's the Rays that make them look bad because they have a non-existent payroll because their owner's cheap, and they have a stadium not even in Tampa. They have a stadium in St. Petersburg, I believe it is, but that's like the retirement capital of the country. So surprisingly, there's not a lot of 80 and 70-year-old retirees going to the game. So. Yeah. I think Tampa gets a bad rep with that, but listen, when I was living down there, downtown Tampa, where the stadium is for the Lightning, they have a strong fan base, and they are. It is rowdy, and that could be the Rays if they just put the stadium over there. The Bucks kind of in a similar boat, but the Bucks have been terrible forever, so I think kind of hurts.
So I stand corrected, but yeah, like the last 2-3 years they've had. I mean, the Rays won the World Series, right? And then
they didn't win, but they were there.
But they were there, and then they won the American League. And then obviously Bucks won the Super Bowl. Lightning won the Cup last year, so Tampa's having. I mean, it happens. Boston did the same thing where they had a couple teams winning, in consecutive years, and then I think even LA did that at one point.
Dodgers and Lakers won the same year last year.
I mean, it's cool.
Tampa's got a solid fan base. It's just they get a bad rep with the Rays, and I mean the Lightning are definitely their team, and the Buccaneers have just been miserable for so long that I think it hurt their fanhood.
Yeah, well, all right, but that puts a wrap on our first top 10 for the 2021 season tight end. So hope you all enjoyed and enjoy the rest of your week.
Peace
out.